This is my prime example of people that's puppet masters trying to control the narrative.
We are awaiting Mayor Henyard to arrive, and we'll give another.
Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, and the supervisor of neighboring Thornton Township, has found herself at the center of a political scandal that rivals any high-stakes political thriller. Her administration has been rocked by explosive allegations, including financial mismanagement, abuse of power for personal gain, and favoritism toward loyal supporters while retaliating against her critics. As public scrutiny grows and calls for her resignation intensify, Henyard remains defiant, refusing to step down despite the mounting controversy. Henyard's struggle to maintain control over Dalton and Thornton Township has become a captivating political saga. Critics argue that she has manipulated local government to serve her own interests, further eroding public confidence in her leadership. Many now question whether she ever genuinely prioritized the well-being of the community or was solely focused on consolidating her own power. Multiple investigations have been launched into her actions, but even as pressure mounts, Henyard steadfastly refuses to yield. Instead of retreating, she has doubled down, making bold political moves that have only deepened tensions within the community. Her dealings with local businesses have raised ethical concerns, and her tendency to use executive orders to suppress opposition has only intensified the controversy surrounding her administration. Dalton is now a town in turmoil, burdened by the weight of Henyard's divisive leadership. One of the key flashpoints in this ongoing drama occurred during the most recent Democratic caucus, where the political struggle took a dramatic turn. For the first time in 30 years, the Democratic Party in Thornton Township opted for a caucus instead of a primary to select candidates. While procedural in nature, this shift quickly escalated into a full-scale political dispute with lasting ramifications. Henyard, desperate to secure her spot on the ballot for re-election, faced a major obstacle when it was revealed that her candidate slate lacked a certified assessor, an essential requirement for a valid nomination. This oversight exposed her vulnerability, creating a pivotal moment that would prove to be her undoing. Seizing the opportunity, powerful Democratic Committeeman P. Harris swiftly introduced a full slate of candidates to challenge Henyard. His organizational expertise and political acumen made him a formidable adversary, and his swift response sidelined Henyard, preventing her from securing the nomination and delivering a nationally publicized defeat. Harris, a seasoned political strategist, positioned himself as a stabilizing alternative to Henyard's increasingly volatile leadership. While her loss in the caucus was a significant political setback, it did not diminish her ambitions. Known for her tenacity, Henyard stormed out of the caucus in a fit of fury, accusing Harris and his allies of sabotaging her re-election bid by manipulating the process. Her supporters echoed her outrage, claiming that Harris had rigged the caucus by allowing his backers to enter the venue first, effectively shutting out many of Henyard's own supporters. Refusing to accept the results, Henyard labeled Harris a coward and threatened legal action. In her mind, she remained the rightful leader, and no political setback would deter her from pursuing victory. The tension in Thornton Township reached new heights as her refusal to accept the outcome deepened divisions within the local Democratic Party. What was supposed to be a routine political event had transformed into an intense power struggle, with both sides accusing each other of underhanded tactics and political maneuvering. As the drama continued to unfold, Henyard's defiance became a defining characteristic of her leadership. Her supporters remained steadfast, but the broader community grew increasingly divided, uncertain whether her relentless fight for power was a sign of resilience or a desperate attempt to cling to authority as it slipped from her grasp. In the aftermath of the caucus debacle, further revelations about Henyard's leadership style and financial dealings emerged. The most shocking allegation was that she had misused township credit cards for personal expenditures, further fueling concerns over corruption and misuse of public funds. As these revelations surfaced, the political and legal battles surrounding Henyard only intensified, pushing Dalton and Thornton Township deeper into crisis. Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton, Illinois, and supervisor of nearby Thornton Township has been marred by scandal and controversy. One particularly shocking revelation exposed that Henyard had spent an astonishing $43,000 on Amazon in a single day, igniting outrage among residents and political opponents alike. Many began questioning whether her priorities aligned with the best interests of Dalton and Thornton Township. As public confidence in her leadership continued to erode, Henyard's political rivals seized the opportunity to challenge her and highlight her shortcomings. The loss of the caucus to Harris and his slate of candidates signified a major shift in political momentum, signaling that Henyard's once firm grip on power was slipping. Despite mounting legal challenges and increasing criticism, Henyard remained defiant, insisting that she was the rightful leader and that her opponents were merely attempting to sabotage her career. Her unyielding determination and refusal to accept responsibility for her actions deepened divisions within the community. As lawsuits and investigations loomed, her defiance proved to be both a strength and a liability, further polarizing public opinion. Many viewed her as a manipulator of the political landscape, more focused on consolidating power than serving the people she was elected to represent. Allegations of corruption and selfing decisions only strengthened the perception that she prioritized her own interests over those of the community. The political drama surrounding Henyard's leadership had reached a boiling point, with the future of Dalton and Thornton Township hanging in the balance. Despite the growing uncertainty, Henyard's political career was far from over. Her loyal supporters continued to rally behind her, pushing back against the opposition. The question remained: could she weather the storm of controversy and legal battles, or had her actions finally caught up with her? The political landscape of Dalton and Thornton Township was shifting, and it was unclear whether Henyard could reclaim her position or if this marked the beginning of the end of her scandal-plagued career. The once unshakable power dynamics were now in flux, and only time would reveal the outcome of this high-stakes political struggle. Henyard's defiant words at the caucus, where she insisted she would emerge victorious, reflected her unwavering ambition. However, as the drama unfolded, the real question remained: could she continue to control the narrative, or was her reign nearing its end? The political climate in Dalton and Thornton Township had been irreversibly altered, and the resolution of this unfolding crisis would determine the future of local governance. The scandal surrounding Henyard only escalated with further allegations of financial mismanagement, abuse of power, and an unrelenting pursuit of personal gain. Calls for her resignation grew louder, but Henyard refused to step down, further entrenching herself in the political turmoil. One of the most damning reports came from former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's audit of Dalton's finances, which painted a grim picture of Henyard's administration. However, these allegations were just the tip of the iceberg. One of the most blatant instances of her alleged political retaliation occurred when Henyard's administration issued over $2,000 in fines to political opponents, further cementing accusations of power abuse and manipulation. With investigations intensifying and the stakes higher than ever, Henyard's political future remained uncertain. The once hopeful community of Dalton now found itself in the middle of a crisis, unsure of what the future held under Henyard's leadership. Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, and supervisor of nearby Thornton Township, finds herself at the center of an escalating political crisis. What began as local governance concerns has spiraled into a full-blown scandal, marked by allegations of financial mismanagement, abuse of power, and relentless self-interest. Despite mounting calls for her resignation, Henyard remains defiant, further entrenching herself in the turmoil. One of the most shocking revelations about Henyard's administration was her alleged misuse of township funds for personal expenses, including extravagant trips and shopping sprees. A particularly eye-popping disclosure revealed that Henyard spent an astounding $43,000 on Amazon in a single day. This revelation sparked outrage among residents and political opponents, many of whom questioned whether her priorities aligned with the best interests of Dalton and Thornton Township. As public confidence in her leadership continued to erode, her political rivals seized the opportunity to challenge her authority. Henyard suffered a significant setback when she lost the Democratic caucus to P. Harris and his slate of candidates, signaling a shift in the political tide. Once a dominant force, she now found herself fighting for her political survival as her grip on power weakened. Yet, despite mounting legal challenges and growing public criticism, Henyard refused to back down, insisting she was the rightful leader and dismissing her opponents' efforts as attempts to destroy her career. Her defiance only deepened the divide within the community. Lawsuits and investigations loomed, and Henyard's refusal to take responsibility reinforced the perception that she was manipulating the political landscape for personal gain. Allegations of corruption and self-serving decision-making further fueled the narrative that she prioritized maintaining power over serving her constituents. Henyard's political downfall accelerated when she was abruptly removed as the Democratic candidate for Thornton Township Supervisor, a stunning rebuke that underscored the growing resistance to her leadership. This was not merely a procedural issue but a direct response to the years of alleged mismanagement and vindictive governance that had plagued her tenure. Her response was to lash out at critics, portraying herself as the victim of political attacks rather than acknowledging the failures of her administration. One of the most blatant examples of her alleged abuse of power involved the Dalton Park District. Henyard's administration issued over $2,000 in fines to the district for basic maintenance tasks, such as spreading mulch and installing playground equipment. Park District President Silly Jones rebuked these citations, accusing Henyard of interfering with an independent government agency. More alarmingly, Henyard allegedly blocked over $500,000 in grants intended for park improvements, depriving the community of much-needed recreational enhancements. This act of political retaliation exemplified her willingness to wield power against those who opposed her, further frustrating residents who felt her actions were harming the community. Residents who had initially hoped Henyard would provide strong leadership now found themselves trapped in an endless cycle of scandals. Her reluctance to approve park upgrades and other community improvements only exacerbated public frustration. People just want to see a better community, not beat-up playgrounds and neglected spaces, lamented one official. Henyard's troubles have drawn the attention of federal investigators, who are reportedly reviewing employment records and financial transactions tied to her administration. Meanwhile, the town's political landscape has been further shaken by legal challenges, including an investigation into the legitimacy of the Democratic caucus in which Henyard was initially selected as the nominee for Thornton Township Supervisor. Despite these growing pressures, Henyard remains unyielding. In a dramatic display of confidence, she compared herself to former President Donald Trump, boasting that she would win re-election by a landslide. However, her refusal to acknowledge the political and legal threats she faces along with her ongoing conflicts with trustees and officials has only reinforced the perception that she is out of touch with her community's needs. As the controversy continues to unfold, one thing is clear: Henyard's political stronghold has become a battleground, and the stakes have never been higher. The future of Dalton and Thornton Township hangs in the balance, and only time will tell whether Henyard can weather the storm or if her scandal-plagued career is finally coming to an end. The Dalton Police Department has been embroiled in a series of legal disputes and staffing issues, most notably with the abrupt firing of Police Chief Ronnie Burr after a judge ruled that he was ineligible to serve. This decision left the department without a leader at a time when crime rates were rising, further compounding public concerns about Tiffany Henyard's governance. Adding to the turmoil, Dalton trustees have increasingly opposed Henyard's leadership, with some even boycotting meetings to prevent her from appointing political allies to key positions. Trustee Chris Gonzalez justified the boycott as a necessary measure to curb Henyard's overreach. In response, Henyard threatened to cancel the township's insurance coverage due to the lack of quorum at meetings, a move that could have severe consequences for municipal operations and public services. This reaction exemplifies the reckless manner in which she governs, leaving critical infrastructure and services vulnerable due to her unwillingness to collaborate with elected officials. Despite the growing crisis, Henyard has remained steadfast in her refusal to step down. As the FBI investigation into alleged corruption within her administration intensifies, she continues to blame the trustees for the town's difficulties, accusing them of endangering the community by skipping meetings. Rather than addressing the dysfunction within her administration, critics argue that Henyard's failure to pay bills, her alleged misuse of public funds, and her retaliatory tactics against opponents have only worsened Dalton's financial instability. To further complicate matters, the controversial Democratic caucus that selected Henyard as the candidate for Thornton Township Supervisor has been marred by accusations of voter suppression and last-minute rule changes. These irregularities have raised concerns about the legitimacy of the process, with election experts warning that legal battles may ensue if the requirements for a full slate of candidates are deemed too onerous under federal law. As the political turmoil continues to unfold, Henyard's supporters remain resolute, insisting that she is the victim of a political witch hunt. However, her critics argue that her leadership has been defined by corruption, mismanagement, and an utter disregard for the needs of Dalton's residents. The town's future remains uncertain, with residents left wondering whether Henyard's leadership will collapse under the weight of its own scandals or if she will continue to cling to power, fighting tooth and nail to maintain control. Amid the growing political crisis, Illinois State Senator Napoleon Harris has weighed in on the situation, describing Henyard as a fighter who will not back down easily. In contrast, his own campaign has remained focused on substantive policy issues, distancing itself from the petty infighting that has consumed Dalton's local politics. Harris's approach reflects the divide within the community. While some continue to support Henyard, many others are increasingly disillusioned by her behavior and leadership style. As ongoing investigations, legal battles, and political drama continue to unfold, one thing remains certain: the future of Dalton and Thornton Township is now inextricably tied to the fate of Tiffany Henyard. Her refusal to step aside in the face of mounting opposition suggests that the political storm surrounding her will not subside anytime soon. The question now is not whether Henyard will be able to reclaim her influence, but rather whether she can prevent the further deterioration of Dalton's finances, government, and community. What began as a series of isolated incidents of political misconduct has now escalated into a full-blown crisis with consequences that will reverberate through the community for years to come. Whether Henyard can hold on to her position or if the mounting pressure will finally force her out remains to be seen. One thing is clear: Dalton is teetering on the edge of a governance crisis. As the drama intensifies, the community waits to see if it can finally move past the turmoil and toward a future of stability and effective leadership.